So while everybody's attention is focused on oil prices, on military strategy, there's a huge threat quietly taking shape, and it's one that could absolutely burst the trillion-dollar AI bubble. It's a chain reaction, and it's already started. And it all begins with a timeline that just keeps slipping.
The initial plan was supposed to be simple, quick, clean, and decisive. The thinking was, this whole thing would be wrapped up in just a couple of days.
But almost right away, that timeline started to stretch. 2 to 3 days suddenly became 4 to 5 weeks. Then you start hearing internal estimates of maybe 100 days, lasting all the way through the fall.
And then this. In less than a single week, the official statement shifted to this. That is a massive escalation. It's a signal that this isn't some limited operation anymore. It's something, well, indefinite.
And right there, that's the connection we have to make. Because while the world is watching the battlefield, the real danger is actually the economic shockwave that's heading straight for the very foundation of the entire AI boom.
So to really understand this threat, we first have to get a handle on what's actually happening in this war, and why the endgame just keeps getting fuzzier and fuzzier.
On paper, the start of this operation was a huge success. Operation Epic Fury kicks off on February 28th, and it hits all its early goals almost immediately. Iran's leader was eliminated, they established air superiority, and just crushed their missile launch capability. It was a textbook military opening.
But here's where that timeline starts to get away from them. The goalposts moved. It went from hitting specific military targets to talk of total regime change. And if you look at history, air campaigns by themselves just don't do that. And that's exactly how a quick operation turns into a long, drawn-out war.
So what does Iran do? Well, from a position of military weakness, they've totally changed their strategy. They're not trying to win on the battlefield anymore. They're just lashing out, trying to cause the most economic pain they possibly can to the Gulf states around them. They're hitting oil facilities, they're hitting ports, even data centers.
Okay, so let's break down the 6 critical economic consequences of that strategy. These are the dominoes that connect a regional war directly to the global AI industry. First up, the energy choke point. And this is a big one. The Strait of Hormuz handles 20% of the world's oil. Within just 3 days of this conflict starting, tanker traffic through there plummeted to just a fifth of its normal capacity. At the same time, Qatar, which by the way produces 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas, had its own facilities hit. That sent a massive supply shock tearing through the energy markets. Second, you have this exporter's trap. High oil prices don't mean a thing if you can't actually get the oil out of the country. So with the refinery shut down and storage full, the Gulf states are being starved of the exact revenue they need to fund all their big economic diversification plans, a lot of which, by the way, are heavily focused on AI. Number 3 is the total collapse of tourism and aviation. Think about it. Places like Dubai and Doha built their entire brands on being safe and stable. Well, that brand was shattered overnight. We're talking over 11,000 flights canceled. The whole industry that was supposed to be their future beyond oil has basically been unplugged.
Fourth, we've got the expat exodus. These Gulf economies are completely built on foreign talent. The UAE's population is 88% foreign. That's incredible. As soon as that feeling of safety evaporated, thousands started evacuating. And this creates this hidden financial risk nobody's talking about. A huge chunk of the bank deposits in that region belong to non-residents. If that money pulls out, you could see immense financial instability.
All right, the 5th pressure point hits a lot closer to home for the tech world. Israel is a massive global hub for AI innovation. Every big name, NVIDIA, Google, you name it, they have R&D centers there. Well, with tens of thousands of tech workers being called up as reservists, the country's innovation engine is being completely redirected to national defense. And every single month this goes on is a month of lost progress for the entire global AI ecosystem.
And finally, number 6, the evaporating promise. The White House was just talking about over $5 trillion in investment commitments, and a huge slice of that was coming from the Gulf states. A lot of that money was specifically for AI. But think about it. How can you possibly send trillions of dollars overseas when your own oil revenue has been cut off and your infrastructure is literally under attack? That money is now seriously at risk.
So how do these 6 things actually connect to AI? It's because the AI industry isn't running on normal economics. It's a really highly leveraged system that's built on something people call a circular funding machine. Basically, it's a closed loop where a handful of tech giants are just passing money back and forth between each other. And yeah, it generates these incredible revenue numbers on paper. but the whole system is dangerously dependent on a constant stream of new, outside money just to keep the lights on.
Let me just break down how it works. Microsoft will invest billions in a company like OpenAI. Then, OpenAI turns around and uses that same money to pay Microsoft for cloud services. Microsoft then gets to book all that spending as revenue. And it's the same thing with NVIDIA selling chips or Amazon selling compute. They're all customers, suppliers, and investors to each other.
Now this machine, this whole AI boom, it really needs three things to keep running. Cheap energy for those power-hungry data centers, available capital from investors, and just general geopolitical confidence. And here's the most important point. This war is attacking all three of those pillars at the exact same time.
So, where do we go from here? Well, depending on how long this conflict drags on, there are really three potential scenarios for the future of the AI industry. If this war is over in a few weeks, we'll probably see what you could call the cooling, kind of a necessary reality check. If it goes on for months, you're looking at the squeeze, where the bubble really starts to deflate and progress slows way down. But if this conflict becomes a long, drawn-out thing, we could be facing the pop, and that is a full-blown crisis. Now, it's really important to understand the difference. A squeeze means funding gets tight and valuations drop. A pop, that's when the entire financial structure, all the bonds, the private credit, it just seizes up completely. That circular funding machine actually goes into reverse, and one company pulling back triggers this cascade of revenue failures all across the system.
So, these are the real-world things you should actually be watching. The answers to these questions are going to tell us which of those three scenarios is playing out. Is shipping in the Strait of Hormuz getting back to normal? Is Qatar restarting its LNG exports? These are the signals that could really determine the fate of the AI bubble.
And that leaves us with one final critical question. The technological promise of AI, it's undeniable, it's real. But as this conflict is showing us, its amazing financial growth has been built on a very, very specific set of conditions. And I think we're all about to find out just how fragile that